Noah, it's great to be with you. I'm Henry Leo Schoebel. Um, Actually, on that note, when I was a young painter and starting to exhibit my work, I always had Henry Schoebel. And at one point I thought, you know what, I should put Leo in there. And interestingly enough, never everybody, but a lot of people always remembered Henry Leo. And I thought, well, you know, what's in a name? It seemed to have made a difference. It had a certain rhythm to it. So I tried to make it a point of always signing my work or presenting myself as with my middle name, Henry Leo Schoebel.
So when would you say that you first became interested in painting?
High school, although I was painting watercolors some point before that. I mean, I was always making something, but painting was something that, you know, I really didn't have the materials to really engage in seriously. And so it really wasn't until college that I really began painting seriously. But looked at paintings as a child, as a teenager.
Yeah. What stood out to you when you were a kid? What paintings stood out to you? Or art, or anything really?
Yeah, you know, when I went to college, I was a little ignorant, maybe a lot ignorant. You know, I knew of, as most people do, you know, Da Vinci and Van Gogh, the popular masters of Western painting, only to discover that it was some of the, for lack of a better way of putting it, minor artists that I really discovered resonated more with me. Their vision was much more personal and idiosyncratic, if you will. Like Morandi, who's a still life painter, painted bottles, still lifes over and over and over again. But the mastery with which he did it is just amazing. Yeah. Didn't have the scope or the ego that someone like Picasso had. And then I think I realized there could be a place for me as a painter.
Yeah.
You know, that it wasn't about being the Mickey Mantle. There's a name you're probably not familiar with.
I do know Mickey Mantle.
Okay,
Yeah.
you know, of the art world.
Yeah.
You didn't always have to hit a home run. You know, you could be good at getting on first base all the time, perhaps.
Yeah.
So it was really eye-opening to me. And also being in college, being, for the first time in my life, talking to and working with the professors, but who were also professional artists. And that was exciting for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes.
So do you feel like the more minor artists were someone that you could resonate with more easily because it felt attainable at the time? Did it have anything to do with the person?
No, I think it was their vision.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That.
So you like the paintings themselves?
Yeah, I like the paintings themselves.
And what about them? The bottles, for example. What do you remember? What struck you?
It was. They were just so beautifully crafted, the paintings themselves, and a subject that was seemingly dull and boring. But the way he composed the compositions, the colors, even the marks that he made, not just Morandi, but since I did mention him. And he spent most of his life, I believe, if I have this correct, living with his two sisters, up in the attic, basically, making paintings.
Wow.
And I think that resonated with me too. And we talked about this the other day, about a vocation. You know, he was fully committed to making those paintings.
Yeah.
With what I believe was very little reward or any reward for what he was doing. So I felt like, again, that there was a place for anybody who takes painting seriously, that their vision, there's a place for their vision. Mm-hmm. Again, you don't have to be on your back painting the Sistine Chapel. So,
right.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, this is a big question, but how would you describe your vision?
Ooh. Wow. I think it's changed over time, but there are certain leitmotifs, if you will, that I think have gone a thread that weaves through my work. And one of them is a decorative mark, that pattern and decoration. Mm-hmm. It's a way of I think setting up the picture plane for me, and also a way of introducing the work to the viewer. Mm-hmm. As I have made my work over the years, and I've thought about how I make my work, I think that the decorative part of my work is a way of entertaining the viewer, and sometimes keeping the viewer away from the more serious, not really the word I want to use, but sort of, if you want to mine the painting for more, you have to get past that decorative element.
Okay.
In a way, I only want those who are willing to get past that surface decoration to really understand my work. So it's both an attraction and repulsion at the same time.
Yeah.
So, because I think you could say, oh, the work is just decorative. No, it isn't. At least that's not how I understand it. But I can understand someone saying that, and I like playing with that.
So I guess like once you get past that barrier to entry, if you will, of the surface level interpretation, what is there for you? What else is there for the viewer?
Well, the other thing I think my work is about is desire. There's a lot of risk in my work. Painting that's behind me, the work is done on raw canvas. Mm-hmm. So any mistake can't be corrected. The mark has to be done right the first time. Yeah. And I like that element of risk and desire to get it right, to hit the mark, maybe a better way of thinking about it. Mm. And the most recent work that involves spirals is also about, starting in the center and making a mark around that, and then completing that spiral, or not allowing yourself to pick up the brush until that spiral is complete. And every mark or curve of that stroke, of that paint stroke, is a risk, because you could screw it up. Mm-hmm. But I like that. So it's I think I naturally want to put in some element of risk. Mm-hmm. If you're a pure oil painter and you're moving the oil around the surface of the painting, there's a lot of room for correction. There's a lot of room. You can scrape it off and start again. There's no scraping off of these paintings. It doesn't make me a better painter. It's just the way I like to approach the painting. Yeah, I guess if I were had an Olympic event, maybe archery would be closer to what I would want to do than boxing. Where you're ducking and moving and got a couple rounds, got more opportunities to come back. But once you let that arrow go, you want it to hit the mark. So.
Yeah, it sounds very technical.
Yeah, it is. Although I don't think of my work that way.
Would you say maybe it's perfectionistic?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a degree of that. Yeah. And I don't think of it not that you were going to ask this, I don't think of it as being sort of obsessive compulsive either. I I think there's something about making it right. there's something about perfecting a skill to a point where you own it, where you can't do this. I know that sounds sort of silly,
Right.
but I've worked so hard. Again, I don't want to think about that like that either. But just to have a skill set is important to me. A vocabulary. It's my vocabulary. I guess any artist could say that. But I've looked at other artists' work that may be similar to mine, and if I would have a criticism, might be they could have done that better. You know,
Yeah.
it's that's why didn't they work harder at that, or why is that mark there? Or they should have cleaned that up.
Yeah.
Silly criticism, but I do think about those things. I think about it with my own work.
Sure. Well, I think the way that you would criticize other people's work says a lot about how you think about your own.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
So do you, and I already have asked you this, so I know the answer, but I've heard it brought up, like at the opening we had, the question of, are you actually the one that is making all these marks and setting all these stones, these crystals in place? And, do you ever utilize any outside assistance to make that happen?
No, and it's sort of just goes back to what I was talking about, looking at other people's work and saying, oh, they could have done that better. I did try once to hire a former student to do some of what I thought was just dumb work, and couldn't do it. I think we talked about this the other day too. When you see a professional basketball player, put the ball into the basket, it doesn't look that hard. I mean, it's ball, basket, throw it, it's in there. It's not that easy to do. And then it's not easy because when they're on the free throw line, they miss so many times, which is just crazy because you think no one's guarding them. They got all time to focus. It should be easy. Shouldn't miss any of those shots. Yeah. But you can go on YouTube and watch individuals get on a free throw line who are not basketball players and consistently make that shot, which only means basketball is more than making a basket. And I think that's something that applies to painting as well. It's more than just a picture. And I would tell my students, a picture is not a painting, but a painting can have a picture. So, what is a painting? That's what's really, that's the question. What is painting?
Well, the other question that comes to mind is, do you feel like your work, or I guess this work, since it's here, has a picture? And if so, how would you describe that picture?
Well, I don't have problems with it being a picture. I'm just saying that I think an error that particularly beginners make is that when they are learning how to move paint around, is that they are making pictures and not paintings. There's a book by, I can't remember his name. I'll have to get it for you. Yeah. But it's the painting is what painting is. And he argues that painting is the true alchemy. That's sort of a brilliant thesis. Because what is alchemy? It's about taking base materials and making something precious.
Yeah.
Okay. And what are paints but base materials? You mix them up, you put them on the canvas, and voila, you have the Mona Lisa, something precious.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's not a discredited science. It's what artists do all the time, whether it's words or notes or paint. But what that means is you have to understand something about what paint is. And I would argue that these paintings of mine could not be done without understanding something about paint, rather than thinking of paint as something that makes a picture. So I already said earlier that these paintings are made on raw canvas. I can't tell you all the steps that led to it, but there was a process of discovery. Oh, that's interesting. Painting on the reverse of the canvas that's primed.
Mhm.
Oh, look, it doesn't bleed the way I thought it would bleed. Oh, what can I do with this? What kind of mark can I make that says something more about what painting is, to use the title of that book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But
actually,
obviously there is a picture. This has a title. It has a source of inspiration.
sure.
But in the end, good painting can only, I believe, have value if it has, if its genesis is about paint.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's, it may be, I don't want to malign another profession, but the difference between illustration and painting.
Mm-hmm.
An illustrator is the job is to communicate an idea clearly and succinctly, and it doesn't really matter what the material is, as long as the idea is communicated.
Yeah.
But I think painting again gets down to something really fundamental, really primitive in a way.
So I asked about your vision. Maybe this isn't too similar of a question, but what are you looking to communicate, or what are you hoping to communicate?
I don't think I have any specific message or idea.
Did you ever have a message that you wanted to communicate?
No, I'm really trying to be thoughtful about this. I don't think so. What I think I was fortunate to recognize, again, I'm repeating myself a little bit, is that I was interested in making paintings.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds sort of silly, but when you stand in front of a painting that is more than the material that it's composed of, it loses any, I think, message, except that it resonates as a painting. God, that doesn't make any sense at all. But I think I'm repeating myself. When I was in college and I had read War and Peace, and it takes a while to get through it.
Yeah.
And after a while, you get into a rhythm, and there's a point where you just think, this is great, I don't want to put it down, and then it ends. And I guess it's true like any good book. But I remember putting it down and thinking, well, why did he write this? I mean, who sits down and writes, a novel full of, thousands of words? I mean, who does that? I mean, that alone was just mind-boggling to me. But in the end, all I came up with was, he wrote it for me and for you and for anybody else who reads it. And it's not about it's not about the story. It's about the experience. It's about the words. It's about the way the whole medium flowed.
Yeah.
And I just was thankful. So to get back to painting, standing in front of a Van Gogh, it doesn't really matter whether they're, a portrait or sunflowers or a field of lilies. It's the experience of just being in front of something that is so beautiful, so awe-inspiring, I think, that there are no words.
Yeah.
So that would be my hope, that someone would stand in front of a painting of mine and just, think, wow, I can just look at this.
That they'd have an experience.
Yeah, have an experience. Yeah. Because so many things in life are just so transient in terms of experience and substance. Right?
What do you mean by that? Transient?
Well, I don't know, going to let's can't think of anything. Going to a sporting event, going to a movie. I mean, it's not that both of those can't be, you know, uh, fulfilling, but they don't last.
Not like an object.
Not like an object. No,
like a painting.
Like a painting. I mean, think about this. I think the arts are our eternity. We talk about, well, we're going to die, and there's going to be this place we go to, eternity. But this is our eternity. You look at a Rembrandt painting. That's 500 years old, and generation after generation has committed to preserving that. That's how important it is.
Yeah. It's our collective history.
I've thrown this question out to many people. When you look at, for lack of a better word, cave paintings, they're brilliant. They're beautiful. I mean, they rise to the same skill level as anybody today or through the centuries. But what I've always wondered about is why aren't there any really crappy cave paintings? Where are the shitty cave paintings?
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of shitty art in the world now. Where was the shitty art back then?
Yeah.
And I've gotten two, I think, good answers. One was that as a species, we were so connected to nature back then that, and this is sort of interesting too, the animals were the ones that were more beautifully articulated. The humans, if you will, often were stick figures more than anything else. But anybody could make those paintings back then because it was just so part of their zeitgeist, their being. And the other theory that has been postulated by my friends is that those walls were so precious that only the best individuals were allowed to make permanent marks on there. But think about the centuries that have gone by and how you could and can look at those images and still feel the presence of your ancestors.
Yeah.
And, that's amazing. That's just amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
So maybe romantically, I'd like to leave some residue behind. That if I can make enough of this crap, a couple of them will survive. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just a thought, romantic thought. But maybe you need that. I'm going to hit the home run someday. So.
Is there a work you've done that you feel like was far and above the rest?
No, I don't think so. I think I have ones that I like, but I think that's different than what you're asking me.
Like a home run, like your one home run.
Yeah,
do you have home runs, or
do
you feel like you've hit home runs?
I think I've made some good paintings.
Yeah.
Triples. But triples. Yeah. This should be hit the home run. What's more is there to do, right? So just hit it again.
Keep going.
Keep going, I guess. Yeah.
Most home runs in a season.
But games aren't run by home runs either. I mean, obviously they are. Get back to my analogy, right?
Yeah.
It's how you steal a base.
Getting on base.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the and I think that's something that poor painters, picture makers, as opposed to painting makers, don't understand.
They're trying to hit a home run every time.
Yeah, they're trying to make something, trying to make an important object every time they make it.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, when I go from a painting like this to another painting, the same sort of style, it's really organic. And then it just sort of, I wake up one morning and I don't feel like doing it anymore. And so if I don't, and I'm sure other painters think about this as well, when you think, God, I should have made more of those. I know Gino thinks I should. But you don't.
Yeah.
Things get in the way.
Right.
Life gets in the way. That's another thing too. I'm always thankful for artists, again, writers, musicians that were able to get up and in the studio or in the workshop and make things, because otherwise, what do we have?
Yeah.
Nothing. You know, they made it for us. They made it for you and me.
Yeah.
Our world is richer because of that. So.
I kind of asked you this when we had talked before, but do you foresee yourself making the same kinds of paintings that you've been making?
No.
Is it an ever evolving process?
Yeah.
And then to what degree, do you think that that changes the way that you view your past work?
I'm sentimental about it. I can't do it again. That's why I just said, sometimes you look at a period of work that you're doing and think I should have made more.
Yeah.
But you can't think as a child anymore, or a teenager, or a young adult. Those periods are gone. There's a certain level of maturation that also enters your work as well. But I would look at some of the work I did when I was in my 20s, something raw and tough about it that I've gotten maybe outsmarted myself, learned too much, trying to keep yourself open to new discoveries as you go on. But yeah.
So you're sentimental about your past work?
Yeah.
And
I look at it sometimes and say, it's not bad. It's not bad.
Do you feel very critical of the work that you've done in the past?
Yeah, I do. And I also make a point of destroying work that I don't like. Most of the time it's during in the process. I go, that's no good. So there's a level of honesty, I think, too, that you have to have as a creator. You can't be precious about it. You can make precious things, but you can't be precious about it.
About the work that you make, or
yeah, you can't. You just have to say this is a terrible painting. This is no good. I've spent months on it, but it's no good. I've got to destroy it. It's no good.
Have you ever regretted destroying something?
No.
Really?
No.
Yeah.
No.
So
because there's always the next one.
Yeah.
And there's usually one or two or more in process anyway, so it's organic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I do one painting and then start another painting. I'm always thinking about, well, actually, not necessarily. The ideas surprise you. You're working, ooh, that's interesting. Yeah. I might do a quick sketch or make a note. Say. And it doesn't mean I'll make that painting. It just, it's surprising to me sometimes what my paintings look like. Because you can't, I don't think you can. I can't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to make this painting. It's a process.
Yeah.
It's so you can't anticipate, you can't see, where you're going. And where you're going sometimes can be surprising. Oh, wow, I ended up here. That's interesting.
Yeah. So. Well, we talked about, and you mentioned earlier how basketball is more than making a basket.
Exactly.
And painting is more than finishing the painting, I guess,
or making a picture. It's more than making a picture. Yeah.
So, what are the conditions that you require or that you try to create so that you can do stuff like this in your life?
Well, again, I think the fundamental understanding is that painting is about paint. So you need to have a relationship with paint, and that involves quite a bit. The material, the pigment itself, the binder, what color does, how a certain medium acts, whether it's oil or acrylic or caustic, that have an effect on the paint itself. It's been argued that advances in painting have followed discoveries, if you will, in what painting is. So you couldn't have paintings like Caravaggio without oil painting. Prior to oil painting, it was fresco or tempera, which is not a medium that you can push around and manipulate. Mm-hmm. So a Van Gogh painting, to jump for closer to our time, an alla prima painting. Alla is Italian for at first or at once, or in English, direct painting. It's wet into wet. You can't do that with watercolor, for instance. Mm-hmm. You know, so a Van Gogh painting is more about the way it's painting with the paint than it is what is painted.
I see.
Yeah, yeah. Although I'm not dismissing the subject necessarily.
No, but it's like the materials inform the process, exactly, which informs the outcome.
Exactly.
And you were talking about how you didn't start painting until you felt like you had the materials
exactly
for it.
Yeah.
Because that's so important to the process.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Yeah.
And what else in your life do you feel like is important for you to do so that you're in this like state? Maybe it's less tangible as paint, but you know, relationships that you have, or routines or rituals. Like what drives you to be able to paint the way that you do?
Well, this is a very personal story, but it certainly has driven my German word Lust, desire to be a painter. I like that too, because lust for life. I think that was a movie about Van Gogh, wasn't it? I believe it was.
I haven't seen it. I'll have to watch it.
Yeah, I have to watch it. When my mother's father died, my grandfather, I was, I think, 13 or something like that, 12, 13. I was very upset, I guess understandably, unless your grandfather's an ass. But anyway, I was very upset. And I was in the kitchen with my mother, and I was telling her how sad I was, and no one's gonna remember him. And my mother said, "It doesn't matter. What's important is that you know how special he was, and you're going to remember him." And I kept saying, "No, that's not good enough. Everybody should know." And honestly, I've never forgotten that, because I can't say I said at that moment to myself, I'm going to leave some residue of myself behind. Mm-hmm. But I think it's been a driving force. This idea of something, some indication that I was here. It's a fool's, hope.
Yeah.
But it has driven me, all this stuff. There was an article in Art in America years ago. How much work has survived over the century? Western painting art. And they looked at the centuries and the towns, and whether it had a cathedral or not. And they sort of did a guesstimate on how much art was produced in each of these towns, and how many objects, if you will. And in essence, what they when they crunched the numbers, like 99% of any art that's ever been made is no longer in existence. Yeah. So it's a very small percentage that actually moves on to them. That's why, preserving a Rembrandt painting or the Mona Lisa, no matter what you think about it, is really incredible that we've made that an effort to make that survive, and why it's such a tragedy. Remember when the Taliban destroyed those Buddhist sculptures in the desert? That's a tragedy. Yeah. That's a tragedy. Yeah. I think it pains the human heart.
I mean, how much art did they move so that Nazi Germany couldn't
get
to it?
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
Yeah. So, and what they discovered was there's only two ways that you can, not ensure, but how paintings survive. Either there has to be lots of it, so make a crap load of art so they can't throw it all away. Yeah. Or bury it. That we have more art from ancient Egypt than we do from Rome, particularly, maybe not more, but certainly in terms of objects and painted objects. Yeah. Because centuries later they dug them up. But any paintings that were on any kind of cloth in ancient Rome, we don't have any of that.
Yeah.
We have some mosaics, but no paintings from Rome. They certainly were done. So I always tell my students, make a lot of work and bury it in the backyard. They also said this, which was interesting. They said the real tragedy is that not only does most work not survive, it's not necessarily the best work. It's the mediocre work that survives. And the example they gave was, you're cleaning out your parents' house, and let's assume they have an attic. They've got mid-century furniture. You're thinking, I don't want this. Say goodbye.
Hold up 1 second. I think the mic died. I think his mic died. I charged it all day. Is mine still green? His isn't. No, it's not. It was like green. Yeah, let's give it a shot. Let's see.
Can you tell this is working?
I would have to stop and listen. Before we put it away, let's actually just here, let me
When did you notice that?
just I was watching it the whole time we were talking.
Henry, looking good.
Henry.
Noah.
All right.
Okay, it's good to be back.
It's good to be back. Yeah.
Yes.
Something like take 3 in a way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Would you care to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Henry Leo Schoebel.
And what do you do, Henry?
I'm a painter, professor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that sums it up.
Yeah.
At least that's what I do professionally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you paint for fun?
No, I've never painted for fun.
Never.
Never. No.
Really?
I'm serious business, and I'm not being silly.
Tell me about
Even
that.
though I'm laughing.
Yeah.
It's not a hobby. I'm not a dilettante. It's something that should be done with gravitas and focus, and one should be serious about it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun. I can be. I'm happy when things go well. It gives me enormous pleasure.
Yeah.
But I've never thought of it as fun. So. Yeah.
So, where did this interest come from, if not fun or entertainment? Why did you start painting?
I don't know if I have an answer for that.
Yeah.
I feel perhaps it was just a way of looking at the world. Desire perhaps to make a mark, record a feeling, leave some residue. I know we spoke earlier about that.
Yeah.
Leaving something behind. But I don't think those were conscious thoughts when I first started painting or drawing. I don't even think there's a start, to be honest. I don't recall waking up one day and saying, I really want to paint. I think paints were introduced to me, but in the same way a pencil or a crayon might have been given to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And we talked about materials when we had spoke previously. So I guess I'd ask you, like, when and who and how were these materials that you use introduced to you?
Well, I was familiar with oil paint and acrylic, pencil, charcoal. But at some point in my painting career, I decided that I would only work with contemporary paint mediums, acrylic and urethanes, because I believe that painting is about paint, and discoveries in painting mediums allow for discoveries in painting.
Okay.
So oil paint, although beautiful and still offers a lot of possibilities, I was interested in exploring what acrylic and urethanes can do as a contemporary medium.
So was that pretty early on that you sort of constrained yourself to this?
As a young man, in my 20s, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But did you started painting earlier than that, or no?
I really didn't start painting until I went away to college. I just didn't have the materials, nor the introduction to it by a professional, an artist, if you will.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would buy small tubes of oil paint out of my allowance, but it was never enough. The tube was always gone before I could finish anything. So,
okay.
I mean, there's a lot of waste in the arts. You want to have, you don't want to run out of flour when you're making bread, right? So you've got to have enough materials on hand to make the painting.
Yeah. So before you started painting, were there artists that inspired you, or someone who taught you, brought you into this world?
No, no, not really. I mean, I think like most teenagers, was familiar with Picasso and Rembrandt. But again, I just didn't have that introduction. We spoke briefly, I think we weren't recording yesterday. I don't know how this is going to flow in terms of our two recordings, but that I went to a parochial high school. And I only took 2 semesters of art because it was just so miserable. I was taught by an aging nun, and I remember one project they had gotten, or the office had gotten some office equipment that was wrapped in styrofoam, and she was very excited about this. And she brought the styrofoam into the classroom and with aluminum foil, and told us to spray the styrofoam with glue and then paste the aluminum foil on it and make sculpture with it. I just thought this was absurd. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is I really didn't have a good foundation in painting. Again, it wasn't until I went to college and worked with professors, professional artists. So that's when I really learned how to paint.
Yeah.
This is what you do with this. This is, how you mix this. This is, I suppose that you can learn that on your own, but it certainly helps to have a teacher and a mentor.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so I guess fast forwarding to your time at Arizona State, where you were a professor of arts, how did like those experiences you had, like with the nuns, or maybe other memories, influence the way that you approached teaching?
I always enjoyed teaching painting because I could introduce the medium, and I spent a lot of time just talking about paint and pigments, their derivations, their properties, because painting is about paint, and irrespective of what you paint, you should know something about what you're painting with. So that was always, I always enjoyed teaching, introducing materials to my students.
Yeah.
I never found it tedious or boring or, I have to do this, because it was like doing science experiments. Watch what happens when you do this. Watch what happens when you do that. Did you know this pigment comes from this material, or this is how it's made, and this is precious, this isn't. All these things were really important. In the Renaissance, you would use materials. When you are taught color theory, you're taught about their primary colors, your secondary colors, but they never talk about hierarchy. But when you talk about pigments, you have to, because some pigments are a lot more expensive than other pigments.
Okay.
So lapis, which is traditionally is how you make ultramarine blue, is very, very expensive. And if you look at a lot of Renaissance or many Renaissance paintings of the Virgin Mary, you'll see that she's often painted in a blue robe. And that's not by coincidence. It's because that's a very valuable pigment.
Yeah.
An important subject deserves a valuable pigment.
Right.
And recognize that the materials that you work with are just as important, if not more important, than what you're painting, the images that you're painting, or the method with which you're painting too. So
yeah. Okay. Well, so you've mentioned Catholic school, and these paintings of the Virgin Mary. So I guess on a more personal note, are there any spiritual traditions that you observe, or that you practice, or that you've learned about that have influenced you or your work?
No, yes, no, maybe. It's to use a German word. It's all gemischt. It's all in there. It's all mixed in there. I will tell you that my personal style, I think I know, came out of going to the library in college and just sitting down on the floor in the library stacks and pulling art books off the shelf without really knowing what I was looking at. And one day I pulled out a book of Indian miniature painting, and I thought, oh wow, this is really incredible. And I seemed to recognize what I wanted in a painting by looking at those paintings or those miniatures. They were decorative, they were colorful, they were, the perspective was very different from Western perspective. In many respects, the planes were very flat up against the picture plane. There was a nice narrative to them, there was some humor to them, and these were all the things that I recognized that I was interested in when I saw Indian miniature painting. But I also learned that I was talking about lapis and ultramarine and the Virgin and preciousness, that colors have other meanings, like Krishna is always blue. There are different ways to think about how you might choose a color, rather than, oh, it's a complement, or it's a primary, or it's a secondary. That there can be some magic behind it, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So. And
that seems maybe almost spiritual.
Yeah, to sort of indirectly answer your question. Yeah. So, I also think that to understand Western painting, you've got to understand something about our Christian iconography. Otherwise, you really can't read the painting.
Like, what would you say are some basics? Or is this something that you ever?
Well, if you see a painting of a woman holding her eyes in her hand, that's Saint Lucy.
Okay.
So, I mean, these are the kinds of things, like, why is she holding her eyes, or why is she holding eyes? Because usually she does have her eyes in her portrait, if you will. But it's another level of information that's important. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I can't read hieroglyphics. I can still enjoy them. Sure. But, and sometimes knowing what it means can be a distraction, because it could be just a recording of a commercial exchange, which isn't particularly interesting, but the hieroglyphics themselves might be interesting. Yeah. So,
and in one of our conversations, you had mentioned an experience you had in art class when you were younger. I'd love to hear that story. I'd love you to also talk about any other memories you have from your childhood that you feel like speak to who you are as an artist, or what you do, or what you're interested in.
Well, I think what you're referring to is when I was, I believe in first grade, making a mosaic out of cut squares of construction paper in a class. And after we were done, again, this is an adult reflecting back on this memory, but after we were done, a student gave their piece to the teacher. And soon after, all the students did that except for me. I was sitting with my little cutout squares of mosaic design. And again, this is an adult remembering. I recall thinking, well, that's fine for everybody else to give the teacher their pieces because they're not very good, but mine, it's pretty good. I don't see any reason why I should give it up. But the peer pressure was so strong that I did. And it's really the end of the story, but I already at that point as a young child valued the preciousness of the work that I was doing, and felt that I didn't understand how the students could make something so casually and seemingly throw it away as if it had no value. And I don't know if I should go on and say that I told you at one point a conversation we had the other day about wanting to go to Ravenna and seeing the mosaics there. And you're the one that sort of made the connection between that story and a desire to see the mosaics in Ravenna. Certainly very, very romantic. I like it, so I'll own it. But,
So. That's awesome. What else do you remember?
As a child? Well, I do remember this. I used to do a lot of figure drawings, and this is a very weird memory, but of naked men and women. And I was too embarrassed for my mother to find these drawings that I would spend an inordinate amount of time turning them into abstractions. And
really?
Only reflecting back did I think, that was a pretty good exercise.
Yeah.
To take a naturalistic drawing and then abstract it. So without, consciously trying to educate myself in terms of abstraction, I was doing it just to hide what I was doing.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's sort of a teenage, maybe early teenage memory. Just didn't want a bunch of nudes hanging around.
And that was before you went to college and
That was
really
before
got involved,
yeah,
as you would say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and when I went to college, got figure drawing class. I just loved that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What about it? What did you like about it?
Just drawing the figure, just being in front of the human body, and just feeling like I was, finally, getting to the core of art making, working from the figure.
Yeah.
I think everything comes from the figure, whether you're working objectively, non-objectively, realistically, imagistically, that's the foundation. So that was very exciting for me.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
And so we're sitting in front of a couple of your pieces here.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a few different styles of work that I've seen
Mm-hmm.
that you've completed recently. But how does this work relate to the human figure, or does it? Or how would you talk about that?
Well, I think it does. I was actually looking at a lot of Peruvian pottery when I was making these paintings of trophy heads, the title, I think, of many of these paintings.
Okay.
And, the trophy heads were really the heads of conquered warriors that they would hang on belts.
Yeah.
And so the tongue of this face also becomes the rope or the strap from which these heads are hanging. Mm. So as joyful as these paintings are, their core genesis, is from something that's a little horrific, if you will. But
certainly,
but a trophy head was a celebration too. It was a thing of to be prideful of. So.
Well, while we're on the subject of your work, and since we've talked about materials a couple times already, what led you to choose the materials that you use for these paintings and the forms that you create? I mean, I don't know if people watching this can tell. Maybe if they're familiar with their work, with your work, they're already aware that there are crystals placed here on the canvas itself. But I mean, that's a non-traditional material. So I'm curious how you would talk about arriving at an interest in using that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what goes into like the actual creation of, this work and this other one that's behind you.
Well, I was already using these materials. So it wasn't as if I had an idea and what would I use to execute that idea.
You were already using crystals.
I wasn't necessarily using crystals, but I certainly was using the acrylic paint and the lacquer finishes and the flake in the finish.
Mm-hmm. So walk me through each of those, because someone seeing this, they might be curious, like what are you talking about?
Well, again, it's a process. I don't know at what point I discovered that let me see if I can back up a little bit. The canvas that these paintings are on is the reverse side of a pre-gessoed primed canvas.
Okay.
Now, I don't know when I discovered that if I painted on the reverse side, if I used a watery acrylic, that the gessoed side stopped the capillary action of the paint bleeding. Does this make sense? Mm-hmm. In the fibers of the canvas. I'm not sure how I made that discovery, why I turned the canvas over and started painting on the other side. But that was sort of exciting to me.
Yeah.
That I could stain the canvas, I could make very precise lines, and I wouldn't have to worry about the very watery acrylic paint, bleeding, if you will.
So we have two materials there. We have the reverse of the primed canvas and then the watery acrylic paint. Are you watering it down yourself?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah. And then prior to these paintings, I had been layering layer upon layer of acrylic paint so that I would get rid of the texture of the canvas. So it's really hard, unless you get close, that you can see the texture of the canvas.
Yeah.
So there may be 50, 60 layers of acrylic paint on top.
Oh, wow.
Maybe not that many,
yeah.
Although it feels like that sometimes.
It feels like 50.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I started putting the flake into the canvas. I mean, into the medium. Again, I think it's because I have sort of a decorative mark that I make, and it's really hard for me to say, oh, I saw that, I did that. But I certainly recognize the flake and automotive finishes and made, oh, that would look nice in a finish on my painting. So that's when I started adding that in.
So that was inspired by automotive?
Yeah, automotive finishes.
Okay.
Yeah. Huh. And the Swarovski crystals, I think, as I mentioned to you when we talked yesterday, were a way of distracting the viewer. Just keeping them from moving completely into the painting.
Okay. Yeah. And just walk me through again. How do you use distraction to communicate what you're trying to say?
Well, I think I use it paradoxically to keep people away from the paintings. We talked a little bit about pseudo-Dionysus the other day.
Yeah.
It's bedazzle them, and maybe that's enough. And only those viewers curious enough will look past the surface of the painting and begin to wonder what's happening beyond the decorative elements.
Well, this speaks to an earlier question I asked you about spiritual traditions. So do you want to talk about like what you had explained related to portraying the divine, and then walk me through how that relates to your approach with like obfuscating the experience of your painting?
Well, I mentioned pseudo-Dionysus, who said there was two ways to image the divine. One is a like-likeness and the other is an unlike-likeness. And he said that the better way to do it is an unlike-likeness, because a like-likeness keeps you away from the truth. So a like-likeness of the divine would be what Michelangelo did on the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah,
old man.
Beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thing.
But you begin to think God's, sort of just like you, just a little bit older and wiser and grayer. But that is not the truth of the divine. And Pseudo-Dionysus said that the better way is an unlike likeness, is something that is so far from what you could imagine the divine to be that it would shock you into a deeper understanding of what the divine is. It's like a Japanese koan, where the Buddha is a shit stick. It's like, what? But you get an insight. So Pseudo-Dionysus said it's better to portray the divine as something ugly or frightening, and only those who are truly seeking the truth would be willing to stop and think about how that may be an example of the divine or an attribute of the divine. But Pseudo-Dionysus goes on to say, but the important thing is it keeps those individuals away from that insight that have not yet earned that insight, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're keeping people away from an experience of your painting by the people who aren't really looking
deeper. Exactly.
Yeah.
They're just seeing it's like someone who puts on makeup to hide who they are.
Yeah.
It's a shield.
Why do you feel inclined to include that in your work?
I think just reading Pseudo-Dionysus, I just thought that's terrific, and maybe because like any true seeker, it doesn't come easy. Even Muhammad had to go to the mountain. I mean, there's a journey for discovery.
Yeah.
And maybe it gets back to the story about preciousness and not wanting to give up my little childhood art piece, recognizing its value and preciousness. That looking at a painting takes time and skill and effort and mining, for meaning and information. It's not just a pretty picture on the wall. And perhaps, and now I'm really thinking out loud, it's a certain level of conceit. It's I don't want, I think there's nothing, I think, more insulting to have someone imply, oh, isn't that nice you make paintings? It seems so dismissive to me, that's cute. Or
isn't it
something.
nice?
Yeah.
Is it like, aren't you having fun? Or
Yeah,
something?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I said, I don't have fun when I paint.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Doesn't need to.
It's serious stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's serious stuff. It's serious stuff.
Yeah. kind of stumped me.
It's okay. See if I can jump in here with something, because I'm drawing a blank myself. We had our rhythm going yesterday, Noah.
Yeah, we did. That's all right, though.
Oh, this chat today was nice. What's that? Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, so, okay. Conceit. You talk about conceit. Now, and I say this with no judgment at all, but when I hear the story that you tell of the mosaic, it sounds like pride. You're proud of what you did. And I don't necessarily mean that in a negative way, but you're proud of what you did, and you wanted to hold on to it.
Sure.
Right. So as an artist who, you're serious about creating work, and it's your vocation. I remember you saying that it was your vocation. How does, that kid who didn't want to give up his painting or his mosaic, his art project, does that kid come around now? You have people buying your work. I mean, I don't know if we can say this, and I'll cut it out if we can't, but one of these pieces that is similar to this one over here sold for $30,000. Is that right?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll say yes.
So somebody purchased that.
Yeah.
And now it's gone. It's not yours anymore.
Right.
Walk me through how that feels.
Well, it feels good. I mean, obviously, it's nice to have someone else value the work enough that they're willing to spend a considerable amount of money to possess it. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is that it's someplace, I won't say safe, but it's by spreading your work around, you limit or reduce the risk of losing it all, I suppose.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've made enough of it that, God, I hate to say this out loud, but I don't want it just collecting dust.
Yeah.
It's nice to share it, and I recognize that the collectors play a very important part in the process. Mm-hmm. And I think at the beginning, as a young artist, it's really incredible to meet a collector that's really excited about your work, because it certainly wasn't something that I grew up with. It's not like everybody was tripping over themselves to own a piece of my work.
Yeah.
If
If only you'd given that mosaic to that teacher, they might have a
may have been.
bit of a savings account
I
going.
would have tossed it. But yeah, it's just part of the life cycle of being an artist.
Yeah.
It's
selling your work,
getting it out there. Yeah.
Making more work.
Making more work. Yeah.
And does that come easily to you?
Making more work?
Yeah.
Not always, but I'm always making work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always make good work.
No.
No. And I'm at a point with these new spiral paintings where I'm still trying to discover what I'm doing. And I think I'll get better and better at not necessarily making the spirals, but understanding what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. But you've got to make a lot of bad work to make good work. But once you hit your rhythm, you can get in there and produce some work. You don't want to become a factory.
Okay. Yeah.
I think there should be some individuality to each piece that you make. Mm-hmm. And I tend to work in series. I'll do a series and for a few years, and then I retool and do another series. Not all artists work that way, but I do. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I get bored or I've solved the problem that I was trying to solve. I think that actually has a lot to do with it.
Solving a problem.
Solving problems. Like,
Okay.
oh, okay. Well, now what? Now how can I make myself miserable? You know.
What's the next problem?
What's the next problem?
Yeah.
That's right. So, but that's what keeps me walking into the studio. You know, engaging with the picture plane. You know.
Where do the problems come from? Like what? Like.
You know, I'm reminded of a story that what really confused me when I was a young man. I was living in Washington, D.C. in an old warehouse, that old pickle factory. And there was about 15 of us living there, artists, unheated. You know, I heated with kerosene for a number of winters. I stank for a couple of winters, you know, due to that. But there was a friend of mine that was working as an assistant for an artist in D.C. His name escapes me. I think it was one of the Washington Color School painters. But he came back one evening and we were chatting and he said, you know, I was working with this guy and I'm building stretchers for him and he's working on his paintings. And all of a sudden, apropos of nothing, he looks up and says, you think I like what I do? I can't help it anymore. And then he went back to paint. And I thought, oh my God, is that what this is all about? You know, is this what I'm rushing towards? You know, this idea. But as I've gotten older, that made perfect sense to me. You know, do you think I like what I do? Because there's no like, there's no fun. I can't help it anymore. And I think he was just, you know, admitting to the universe that this is who he is. And then he went right back to work.
Yeah.
It was just a little you know, glitch in the universe, you know, where he had an understanding, an epiphany of who he was. And it had nothing to do with selling your work or making good work or you know, getting recognized for the work. It was making the work. And it wasn't about liking it. That doesn't mean it was, you know, that he disliked it.
Sure.
Anyway, I thought it was really sort of a profound thing to say. But
Yeah.
to hear that as a young painter, it was a little shocking, you know, because this was a successful artist. And, you know, that's just who he is, you know.
And so you relate to that now?
Yeah, I do. I do. I understand that. I get up in the morning, I want to get into the studio.
Yeah.
And take my cup of coffee in there and get to work. I have good days, I have bad days, but I can honestly say every day I want to get in there. Every single day I want to get in there.
Yeah.
And it can be joyful, but that's really not the point. You know, I think last time we talked, I told you about an old Dunkin' Donuts ad where maybe we didn't. Well, there used to be an old Dunkin' Donut ad. This is when I was living back east. And it shows this guy, you know, the alarm goes off at like 3 a.m. or something. And, you know, he's getting out of bed. He hits bed and he's like tired and he's walking half asleep. And he goes, time to make the donuts. Time to make the donuts. Because they have to be fresh for everybody in the morning. But that's what I feel like when I get up. Time to make the paintings. Time to make the paintings.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
No, you do like it.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. If, again, I think it transcends it's you know, it becomes who you are.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think you can distinguish the act of creating from who you are. I certainly had a much more romantic idea of what it was to be an artist when I was young than I do today. I understand it as a job now.
And what did you think it was?
Like being a magician or a god. I mean, that sounds really silly. I mean, just doing something that was just beyond what humans should be able to do. You know, I mean, you think about it. I mean, how are we defined as a species? By our music, by our writing, by our poetry, by our art. I mean, it is sort of special, you know, and to feel that you're somehow contributing feel sort of special too. But in the end, it's work like anything else is. You know?
Yeah.
I don't have children, but I would imagine that may be the same way you feel about children. You know, they're going to be special, and you know, they're going to be sweet, and they're going to be smart, and they turned out to be people. You know?
Yeah.
So that you have a relationship with, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
but you are creating. It's a creative act.
Yeah.
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 So, but I think I don't think you have children or make paintings. Oh God, this sounds so silly. Without some feeling of specialness to, you know, in engaging with that. So.
And so you still feel special, even though it's your job. And when you get up in the morning and you want to paint and you do it.
I don't feel special. I just want to do it.
Does that feel like, well, maybe you don't feel special, but does it feel special to you still to paint, or is there something that's worn off now, or you're just
No. If anything, I'm more engaged with it.
Yeah.
You know, I want to continue to make work, to make paintings, to make good paintings, and you know, still want to leave something behind. I don't mind stacking them though, if that makes any sense. It's always going to be the next one, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, you know, that one's done now. Now what do I do? You know, how do I move from that last painting to the one I'm going to do next? And you know, how do I take the ideas that I am perfecting, or the techniques that I'm perfecting, and moving forward with them? And what's exciting, I think, for an artist is never really being able to anticipate how the work will evolve or change.
Yeah.
You know, what will occur to you. And you never know when those moments will happen.
Sure.
It's like, oh, you know, you're asking me about the crystals. I can't tell you when that popped into my head. Mm-hmm. You know? But you're always looking, always thinking. So you're always open to the ideas coming to you.
Yeah.
I think in some respects I've been lucky that I haven't been, Gino's going to like to hear this, I haven't been a commercial success, because I haven't been trapped by that. You know,
What do you mean?
Well, I've never had, oh, well, those paintings sell, so I better make more of those. Yeah. So.
And yet you had said yesterday you wish that you had made more of these, right?
I did, but I can't. Well, I guess what I'm saying is that the moment that I made these paintings, and I'm talking about, you know, a period of time,
Yeah.
just was over.
Yeah.
You know, I couldn't get it back. But I do think that there are many painters who, you know, develop a style that they carry throughout their career, and you know, sometimes that's due to commercial success. So,
yeah. And an obligation maybe to continue doing what you did that worked.
Yeah, what works.
Which you don't feel.
No.
Okay.
No, and I would lose interest in it at some point. It's like, boy, this is boring.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing over and over.
You're not a factory worker.
No, but I'm not trying to continue to contradict you, but I feel like when I'm in there, I'm, you know, on the assembly line.
Yeah.
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 Because.
But it's different every time. It's a new thing every time. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question I probably wouldn't ask most artists. It's a hard one, but why? Well, I'll say, is this a good painting, and why would you say it is if you think so? And if you don't, why do you think it's not?
I think it's a good painting. And why do I think it's a good painting?
Yeah, why?
Well, I was going to be facetious and say because it's a goddamn good painting. That's why it's a good painting.
Yeah.
You know,
I want more than that, please.
You know, it tastes good.
Yeah.
You know, it's what more do you want the kid to say?
Yeah.
You know, chocolate tastes good. It's just, it all comes together. And so maybe it isn't so facetious. The only other way I can answer it is that, well, I think that I did a really good job with the way I put the paint down, and you know, I think technically it's you know, it has integrity, and I think the composition is well balanced. But you know, you can balance a rock on a stick, and it doesn't make it a painting or a piece of art, I suppose. But I think that's the magic. It's just good. And another painting is just bad. And if I may use children's analogy, sometimes you have a good child and you have a bad child. You know, you brought them both up, you know.
Yeah, and what do you do with the bad children?
Well, that's the problem. Yeah, you can't throw them away, but you probably with some children, you know, you feel like it. But I think what I'm really trying to say is that you have such an intimate relationship with your work that you know when you step away from it that it's good. And, you know, we talked about athletes. You know, why is that a good shot or a good kick or just was. You know, everything led up to that. But if you ask me to rewind, that's a little bit harder to do. You know,
and it is because, like you said, the materials and the problems that you're solving, like it all just kind of unfolds into something.
Right.
And this is that something.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's something hard to teach. You know, because the student will always ask you, is this good or bad? They don't know. And the reason they don't know, they don't have the experience to recognize it. And in a way, that's what your part of what you're teaching is about, to show them how to recognize that was good. Like a mark, any mark on a painting. You know, what makes a good mark?
Yeah.
I don't know, personality, rhythm, the height of the mark. I mean, you can name a number of different things. But until you make lots of marks, you won't recognize a good one. So it's a process, I think.
I like the word that you used earlier, which was intimacy.
Yeah.
Like, so there's a level of intimacy that's required with your own work to know when it's good.
Yeah.
And you had to be intimate and close to
have a relationship
anything
with
that you've made.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I know we already talked about this, but I'll just ask you anyway. What do you do with the things that you don't think are good?
I destroy them. Yeah.
That's the end of it.
Yeah. I had a number of years ago, an acquaintance came into my studio and he wanted to buy one of my paintings. But he apparently didn't want to buy one of my finished paintings because he saw a painting that I had taken off the stretcher and it was hanging on just tacked onto the wall. And he said, well, what about that painting? You know, are you selling that painting? I said, no, I'm going to destroy that painting at some point. It's not a very good painting. And he said, well, I'll buy it. And I said, but it's not for sale. I'm not selling you that painting. And he kept returning to it. You know, I think he could get some kind of discount off of it because I didn't value it as much.
Is that what he was after, you think? He wanted
he wanted a cheaper version of a better painting, basically.
Yeah.
But I wasn't about to give it to him. I mean, I see no point in hanging on to work that doesn't work. You know, it's a reminder that you can be a bad painter.
Yeah.
You know, I think any artist could probably say out of a series of work, this is a really nice painting. Well, what about the other ones that you've kept? Well, I think they support this painting. You know, they're not as good. It may be like, I don't know, Picasso saying, well, Guernica is my masterpiece, and all these other paintings are, you know, they're good, but you know, they're not as good as this one. And the surprise is that your best paintings always feel effortless. And again, this is get back to teaching. I think there are 3 types of paintings you can make: failed paintings, successful paintings, and paintings you work your ass off on that eventually work. And the only painting that you truly are engaged in are the okay paintings, because it's the only time you use your expertise as an artist. You know, is the composition wrong? You know, should I adjust the color? You know, is the image okay? The successful paintings and the failed paintings, they just happen. And your job is to recognize when those occur. Failed ones, get rid of. Successful ones, make sure you keep. The rest of the time, you're just working your ass off to get okay paintings done. You know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think Picasso made a lot of okay paintings.
I would agree with you.
Yeah, a lot of okay paintings. But that's not easy to do.
Sure.
Because even an individual with no artistic talent can throw shit on the wall and it can look good at some point. You know. So, you know, that's not so hard, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, so there's a level of curation in your process as an artist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Self-curation.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I wanted to ask you, and I had asked you this question before when we spoke, but are there paintings that you have that you feel like stand far and above the rest?
I don't know far and above, but yeah, I think there are paintings I really think are nice paintings.
And what conditions led to those being created?
What condition were they created under?
Yeah, what conditions led to you creating a painting that you felt like
I don't know.
greater
I don't know. As I said, it just happened.
Yeah.
They just happened. They just.
And they were effortless, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's based on all the work that you've done, all your knowledge, but at some point, you know, the muse speaks, or the gods are friendly to you, and it just happens. And and you think, wow, that's really good. But you know, most of the time you're struggling to either repeat that, which is impossible, I think, or you know, complement it with other paintings that you know, you create based on what you know about painting, you know, and your personal vision and style.
Yeah. Have you tried consciously to revisit your past work and recreate it?
No, I don't think I could. I don't even know if I could remember how to make them. You know, that you lose that knowledge pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah.
You know, how you mixed the paint or how you applied it. You could probably do a pretty decent job, but I think like being in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a physical act, painting. You know, so I think you have to be your brain and your hand, your eyes all have to be coordinated.
Mm-hmm.
And there's got to be a certain rhythm to it. So, no, and I don't think I would want to either. Just generally speaking, I wouldn't want to do again what I've done before.
Mm. Yeah. I
mean, sometimes I look at an older painting and I go, that's not so bad. You know, not so bad. I was doing a workshop in Germany with a colleague of mine, and there was a young woman there, a student, German, and she asked us to critique her work, and we both used the phrase "not bad." And at one point, she said to us, "Why do you keep saying my paintings are not bad?" And I said, "Oh well, it's an expression in English, which translate to is pretty good, but it's not bad." So, but I think it's an interesting way of talking about whether something's good or bad by saying it's not bad, because I think the tendency is to make something bad, and God damn it, it's not.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't mean, I really may be taking this too far, but it doesn't mean it's good. It's just not bad.
Yeah.
So,
How do you feel about painting things that you think are not bad?
I think that's your mark of a good painter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because again, your failed paintings, you just like, fuck, that's terrible. And your successful ones, like, wow, how did I do that?
Yeah.
So the mark of a good painter is that they can make okay paintings. And I think you look at any artist's career, most of what they've done are okay paintings. And believe me, that's nothing to scoff at. That's really hard to do, to make. That's harder than anything else, is to make an okay painting, I think.
Because you have to.
You really have to work at it. Yeah.
Fight for it.
You really have to understand what you're doing, how you're doing it, the marks that you're making. But that's why it's so delightful when you make, a good painting, because it's really magical. Again, I don't know. Maybe it's the same of making getting the soccer ball into the goal. It's sort of magical when it happens.
I do love that.
Yeah, and someone said, "Well, how did you do that?" It's like, well, I don't know. It just seemed to happen, but it didn't just seem to happen. All your work goes into that moment.
Yeah.
But that moment is that's what's magical about it.
How do you cultivate your life so that you have those moments, those magical moments?
How do I cultivate
you
my
personally?
life?
Yeah. How do you do it? What do you do?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Well, we had talked about basketball, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about how basketball is not just scoring a basket.
Right.
It's all the training and preparation
Right.
and experience on the court that leads to you being able to make the basket and
Right.
doing it. So how would you describe like everything that's not making the basket? And I'm saying making the basket is looking at the painting and feeling the magic.
Yeah, I think looking, seeing. Even as I'm sitting here, I'm looking at the objects here in the room and thinking about them, maybe not consciously, but that's I'm looking at the strings here on these bricks, thinking about how they were attached, or the distance between them. And again, I'm only now saying that because you're asking me. I think I'm always looking. I would imagine a musician is always listening. Picasso, I think I'm paraphrasing this, said, he likes all kinds of painting. Even someone painting a house, it's painting. It just delights in it, and you learn to see over time. And again, get back to my teaching, it's another skill that you try to convey to your students is how to look. I watch them paint. I watch them look. Well, I don't watch them look at a still life. That's the problem. They're not looking. They think they see something in front of them, but they're not really seeing it. They're not really looking at it. They look at it and then they spend more time trying to recreate it on the paper without, looking back at the object that they're painting. So, and it's a skill, over time, so, and recognizing things. I told you about taking down a book of Indian miniature painting, sort of recognizing this is what you've been looking for. You have to be open to that moment, and time and space.
So to your student who is sitting there and they're painting the fruit or whatever, and you can see that they're not really looking, I mean, what do you say to them? How do you even approach teaching that?
Yeah.
As someone with, I don't know, you taught for what, 30 years?
Yeah, I'd say close to 40, to be honest. So Well, you try to step back even from that, because that's too hard. I mean, if they can't see the fruit, you can't start at the end. You have to start at the beginning. So very often before you start a painting, you'll tell your students to do some thumbnail sketches. And you'll say, let's say they all have square canvases. I'll say, make us a square on your sketch pad and do 5 or 6 thumbnail sketches. They can't even draw a square. That's how far away they are from seeing the still life. And I say, that's not a square. Even if it's close to a square, the lines are either bending in or out, or it's a rectangle. I mean, it's not a square. And even if you tell them, please, let's make squares, they still have a hard time doing that. I spent some time in India in an Indian miniature painting studio. I was on fellowship there for close to a year. And I learned a little bit about how an Indian artist is trained. And the first thing they're taught to do with a brush is to take their brush and on a piece of paper go from the right-hand side of the page to the left-hand side of the page. And then go below that and start just below that line and left to right. First of all, it's hard to get it straight. Secondly, it's hard to stop where the other line is. Once you've mastered that, you start on the right-hand side of the page and you go to the left-hand side. And once you've mastered that, you draw a line from the right-hand side to the left, then you lift up your brush and you put it at the beginning of the line and you make an arc above the line, then below the line, and then you attach it to the point of the, just exercise after exercise. And it builds and builds and builds until, I don't know that it always ends this way, but you do a painting of a pig, 2 paintings, one where the pig is sleeping and one where the pig is dead, and you should be able to tell the difference.
Wow.
Yeah, so talk about nuance and subtlety.
Yeah.
But this idea of just training your hand and eye to make that coordination. So it's hard.
And we're talking about painting again.
Yeah.
And so how does that relate to seeing?
Well, seeing is recognizing the relationships between all the objects that you're looking at. How they line up or bisect, or I'm looking at this cast urn of fruit here, and yesterday and today I'm thinking, well, it's not symmetrical. I mean, that was my first thought. It's not symmetrical. But I don't know if everybody who looks at that initially thinks that. But it would be the first. If I were drawing that, it'd be the first thing I would think about. I would draw a line from top to bottom, the side, and then go, okay, well, I know, that the top of the, I don't know if it's the same from where you're sitting, but the top of that pile of fruit would be on the right-hand side of the line I drew down the middle.
Yeah.
So it's starting with the most basic, fundamental observation about it. Is it tipping or not tipping?
Right.
Is it symmetrical or not symmetrical? How is it divided up? Is the top the same, have the same height as the bottom does? And then, you just begin to chop it up and parse it out. And, it's very analytical on some level.
So generally as far as I understand it, when people are doing our education, they're typically starting with these basic forms like spheres and prisms and still lifes and figure and whatever. And you don't, at least these works that are behind you, don't necessarily include something so literal as like this object we're talking about, right? So how do you see like those fundamentals playing into the way that you make this art that we're looking at?
I think one of my strengths is composition. I think I have real intuitive sense of balance and design. And I was going to say I work very hard at it, but I'm very conscious of it. Let me just say that. How were these heads placed? Well, I can tell you, if you draw a circle, if you have a point here and you have a compass, and you put the compass there, if you draw that compass, it'll hit here, 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 and here. They form a perfect circle around there. And, it's been a while since I painted this, but I'm sure there was some placement of these on the outer side too. Perhaps that balanced that one off, and there were two here that balanced these two off. So I want to make it, I think in the end, you never want to show the effort in something you do, whether it's acting or making a painting. It should look effortless. As soon as you show them what you've done, then you haven't done it very well. It should basically disappear. So I think that's one of my strengths. I've always believed that my weakness is color, and every time I say that, somebody goes, "No, you're really good at color." And I said, "Because I work really hard at it, but it doesn't come naturally to me." I mean, I mix and mix and mix and mix and mix and mix, and then I'm still not sure. But I know other artists that can seemingly mix color, a couple colors, and I go, "This is it," and I go, "Yeah, it looks really good." But so you need to know your strengths and your weaknesses too. Yeah. So definitely. I'm good at design. I think I'm good at composition. I think my ideas are interesting. And although I think my colors are fine, I work really hard at it. Yeah. So, but your strength can be your weakness too. You can over-design something. So it's an interesting game, and that's what I find interesting about being in the studio. These things are always a challenge.
That's also a balance. Design, but not over-design.
I would tell my students when you have an opening, don't tell anybody how hard you worked. Just make it look like it was magic. No one wants to know how hard you worked. You don't want to go to a play and have the director come out, "You can't believe it." No one wants to hear that. They went there to be entertained. But, I bet you they all worked really hard. The actors, the director, the orchestra. But that's not the magic you're creating. No one wants to hear that. No one does.
Make it look
but
easy.
But if you are in the cabal, in the mafia, you get all the secrets,
Right.
We had to kill the guy. He was, causing problems. We had to throw that painting away. It was not any good. It's like, you gotta be tough.
Yeah. So what was easy and what was hard, and
but that's not how it should be presented. Make it seem like magic. It's not magic. Magic isn't magic. Right? Once you know the trick, it's not interesting anymore, right?
It's misdirection.
Yeah, exactly.
Which goes back to your point of the obstacles, I think.
Yeah.
So, the story that you were telling about cleaning out your dead aunt's house and what you keep and what you don't, would you mind just sort of jumping into that?
Yeah, this is not my observation. It comes from this article in the Art in America. But in terms of what art survives over time, it probably isn't the best. It's probably the mediocre. And the example they used was you were cleaning out your parents' house, and the furniture that they owned would be, let's say, some type of period furniture that's no longer anybody has any interest in. And do you want it? Nah, do you want it? No. And so it goes, to the Goodwill or to the dump and just gets disposed of. But maybe 20 years later, someone buys the house, and they go up in the attic, and in the corner is that same kind of furniture stuck in the corner. And they go, oh, look at this. You know, you don't see this very often. And boy, you know, everybody loves this style of furniture now. And you think you've made, you know, a great discovery. And maybe you have. But the reason it was up in the attic, it wasn't the best piece. You know, the best pieces were downstairs. And those were the ones that got thrown away. So a lot of times the work that survives is the work that, you know, gets put into the corner that no one really wanted, but over time, you know, had a chance to survive. So, and I think I mentioned this when we talked about this last, that we have more work from societies like ancient Egypt that buried their royalty with lots of objects, art objects. Of course, I don't think they considered them art objects at the time. But, you know, the tombs that were raided, that stuff was probably just tossed. Who needs this, you know, this furniture, right? It has no value. We want the gold, we want the jewels. But, you know, the centuries have gone by that, wow, you know, this is valuable. So, you know, again, humorously, I tell my students, you want your work to survive, just bury it in the backyard. You know, someone will dig it up eventually. But, because, you know, both my parents are dead, and I can tell you, you don't keep stuff. You toss it, you know. And maybe you're tossing all the wrong things. I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Is there something that you've thrown away that now you wish you had?
No. I think. I mean, maybe I made a bad decision, but I think all the work that I've thrown out deserved to be thrown out. I have a cautionary tale. I have a good friend who's an artist, Patrick. I won't say his last name. I was browsing the consignment shops here in downtown Phoenix, and I was just casually looking at anything and everything, and out of the corner of my eye, I see this rather large canvas with a couple figures, and I thought, that's not bad. No, not bad. And I said, that's interesting. I walk over there, and I see on the bottom his last name, and I thought, I wonder if that's his painting. So I called him up from the consignment shop, and I said, do you remember doing a painting? And I described it to him, and he said, yeah. And I said, well, it's hanging in the consignment shop here, and you can have it back for $500. And I said, the only problem is it has, you know, these rips, half a dozen rips in the middle of the painting, but not all the way through. And he goes, oh my God. He said, years ago, after I got out of graduate school, I took all the paintings I didn't like, and I rolled them up, and I took a circular saw, and I just made these cuts through this roll of paintings, and then I just tossed it into the dumpster. Well, obviously someone came along and took those paintings out of the dumpster and unrolled them, and at some point decided to shop them to the consignment shops.
Wow.
And I said, Patrick, you should have cut all the way through those damn paintings. But, and then after I told him I saw his painting in that consignment shop, I went on to a second one, and there was another one of his paintings from that same roll with some cuts in it.
Wow.
So what's my point here? When you throw something out, make sure you destroy it. Otherwise, it'll come back to haunt you. So.
He wasn't happy about that?
No, he was not happy about it.
Wow.
And the joke was on him, because I said, you can have it back for $500 bucks.
Yeah.
So, you thought it had no value. But anyway. I imagine at some point, everybody's work ends up at a consignment shop at some point. I think there was a woman in Tucson who found a Pollock painting in a consignment shop. So.
Lucky lady.
Yeah, lucky lady.
Yeah.
Just goes to show you. Not
I would be
knows
happy
what
to
they have.
find one of your paintings
Yeah,
in a
that's
consignment
right.
shop
That's
someday.
right. Yeah.
I'll definitely buy it.
Yeah. You know, though, I've given a lot of work away. You know, And I've also given work to, you know, people have come to my studio and said, I only have $100. And I said, I'll find you something.
Yeah.
You know, $20, I'll find you something. You know, I'm not going to let you walk away. I'll take the $20 off.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, but it's interesting to see, you know, how many people value the arts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though I've been in it for so many years, I always find it surprising. You want to spend that much money?
Mm.
You know, it means that much to you.
Yeah.
You know, it almost shocks me sometimes. Like, really? You know, didn't cost me that much to make, but obviously that's not the point. But you know, I think it's surprising.
Mm-hmm.
It is to me anyway. That someone that is willing to put out hard-earned money for an object.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why I still find it surprising, but I do.
Well, have you ever purchased an artwork that was expensive or an object that?
Not beyond my means. Not anything where it hurt.
Sure.
Put it that way. Yeah.
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 Well, you could assume these people aren't spending beyond their means.
Well, that's true too.
Yeah.
That's true too. Yeah.
And why do you think people buy your work? Has anyone told you, or do you have an idea about?
I was going to say because I think they like it. I think it resonates with them. I think collectors are part of the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think these people that buy your work, do you think they have the opportunity to see past the obstacles that this sort of surface level thing that you throw in there?
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it really matters.
No.
You know, I think if they enjoy it and they get some pleasure out of it, or some level of status out of it, that's fine with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah. Again, I've moved past that child level of you know, preciousness to let's get this stuff out of here.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, in boxes, and someone should enjoy it, you know.
Well, I think the last question I'll ask you, we can wrap it up,
Sure.
is take as long as you want. Maybe this leads to more questions, who knows?
Okay.
But you know, where do you see yourself going from here?
I have no idea. I just know I have that every day in the studio is, you know, just another good day, particularly if it goes well.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the studio today and I'm doing these spirals, and I'm working on a larger painting. I've only made little ones, so I'm working on one that's 40 by 40 inches, not particularly large, but so there'll be a lot more spirals on it. And there's a brush that I'm using, and it's a bristle brush, and after a while the neck of it gets clogged with paint, and I just can't use it anymore, so I have to pick up a new one. It's always hard to, you know, work a new brush in. And I thought, well, I'll start with a new brush for this painting. And I had so much trouble with the bristles on it. It was just really frustrating. I don't know why I'm sharing this with you, because there's really no point to the story. But you know, these are the challenges. I'm not really thinking about, you know, where I'm going to be tomorrow, what I'm going to do next. That I'm focused on, you know, how do I make this brush work for me? Mm-hmm. Because I can't start with one that's about ready to be useless. I have to start with one that's useless at the beginning, and then I get to a sweet spot with it. I don't even really know what I'm trying to share with you, except that, you know, these are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about and trying to be conscious of when I'm making work. I guess I'm so busy making the work, I'm not really thinking about, you know, what I'm going to make next.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
Especially since you describe it as sort of a natural unfolding.
Yeah.
Well, when tomorrow you walk into the studio, what's on your mind?
Get back to work.
Yeah.
You know.
You still breaking in that brush?
It still needs some breaking in. I did tape up the heel of it a little bit. I thought that might help, and I took it off. And but the spirals I made were okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Not bad. Maybe.
not bad. And I've got plenty more to make. And you know, I feel good. I feel that I'm going to make some progress. It was interesting, though. I will share with you. It's going to be the spirals are all going to be gray, a light gray, a medium gray, and a dark gray, and then I'm thinking putting black dots on it. So it's basically a black and white painting, shades of gray. And I started, and there's quadrants on this painting. And so I started with the light gray because I figured, well, I'm gonna fuck up. I might as well fuck up with a light color. You know, I could probably hide that. That's another thing too. You know, you're well aware of you know, where you can start. We'll do it. That will do the least amount of damage. But they came out all right. But at one point, I thought. No, but even before I started, you know, I'm talking to myself. You better just do one of those spirals on a scrap piece of canvas, and you know, make sure you know what you're doing. Even though I've done it a million times, just make sure you understand what you're doing. So it's just like before a game, you know, throw the ball a little bit, you know, get warmed up. Yeah. So I did the spiral, and it was really light. And as the paint runs out, it just disappears into the canvas. I thought, maybe I'll just do a painting with just those light spirals. So that's a pretty good example of how an idea may come to me. Yeah. I had no intention of doing that or thinking about that. I just looked at it and thought, that might not be a bad idea. Yeah. I might do it, I might not do it. But sometimes, you know, just preparing, warming up, if you will, for the day will reveal something to you about the work. So. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Well, that's all I got. Thank you. That was great.
Yeah.
I think you should look at what we did the other day too. I think there were some good things in there too.
I think it was better personally, but
really, well, it's your this is your art. So
I mean, I think the other one was better.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.